just to cater to a certain class or group of individuals. We also have a number of families that have been affected through the closure of DHS who have been providing essential services to families and community members throughout the state as PCA servicers and all of those things who have not been paid since December. That does not have anything to do with ICE. It has to do with the fraudulent impact that is currently reigning over our state. And with putting a discriminatory type of resolution as this, where we're saying we're only catering to individuals who are impacted by ICE, that is going to also smell and spell out some type of fraudulent discrimination that is going to further impact marginalized communities, and it's not going to work in any way. That's all I have to say about that.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, President Payne. I just really want to take a second to paint the picture that we're in. And I think it's really important to state that we're in an all hands on deck situation, right? Like, it's been clear for the past few months, all we have is our community, and in local government, we are all looking for ways to improve the material conditions of those whose lives are actively falling apart, while knowing that there were several hundreds and hundreds of community members who were already before this crisis struggling. And what we know is we don't have enough of those resources. And what we know is that this $1 million is about to be a drop in the bucket for the rental assistance that we need, but it's going to be a lifeline. It's going to help many, many families in this moment. And I need to make sure that we're protecting this body. Us allocating funding for rental assistance is not fraudulent. It's prioritizing, in this moment, $1 million, a drop in the bucket for those experiencing harm in this crisis. And we need to go to the legislature and make sure that we have rental assistance for everyone to recover, whether it's due to the impacts of ICE or because you had a predatory situation in your part of town and you've been living paycheck to paycheck and you're a single mother and you've been struggling for some time and you are trying to avoid an eviction, right? And in this moment, the phone calls that I've been getting with community members have looked like this. I talked to one gentleman who was like, I have lived in this country for 17 years and I have never asked for help. I've never wanted to ask for help, but I have no choice now because I am scared. I am scared that I'm going to be kicked out of my home and I need to stay here. I've talked to many women, especially. It's a lot of women, and I know a lot of community members in Minneapolis resonate with this. Many women that are trying to figure out what's happening for their family. Women who have lost their partner because they have been taken and abducted, and that income is now gone. Women who were already single parents and were going to work and now are fearful of going to work because they're the lifeline to their child, that they have no option, again, to just ask for help so they can stay in their home. Women who are working, but because their workplace has been so impacted by this ICE occupation, are not able to pay their paycheck on time, and so they're late on rent. And so I just want to say, like, this $1 million is certainly not going to meet the need, but it is a measure that we can take to lift some boats and also leverage future rental assistance. And I know that there are risks that people take when it comes to applying for rental assistance with their data, but I think we should give people the agency to decide to take that risk and not decide that for them. I don't think that's our job as government. And when you get an eviction letter, when you get a letter that says you're going to proceedings, sometimes the only option you have in that moment is to apply for emergency rental assistance. And I think this is a moment where us as a city can step up and also be a model for getting more assistance and more resources for the Black, Brown, Indigenous communities that have long suffered in the way in which our housing system is set up, right? It shouldn't be that precarious for people to stay in their home. And so I think it makes a lot of sense for us to vote for contingency. I understand the concerns that several of my colleagues have. I just implore you, I think this is the best source for us to do it in. I think it has a lot less risk than us going into our cash fund, and I think it matches the emergency type of situation that contingency requires. So I just really implore you and ask for your vote on this one today.
Councilmember Chuktai.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am really excited to support this item today, and I want to urge all of you sincerely to support this item. And I want to talk about that through three different lenses. The first is around programming and what happens when, should we approve this money, what is going to happen on the side of Hennepin County. So the total amount of money that is allocated for rental assistance through Rent Help Hennepin is approximately $10 million at the county. Each year, that entire pot of money gets used fully. Last year, additional money had to be added during the fourth quarter because the resources were all entirely tapped out. There is no way for a person to receive this form of rental assistance unless they earn approximately minimum wage, about 30% of area median income, and they have received court summons. They've been served summons to show up at eviction court, meaning their names are on that, their address is on that, right? Like the government has the information, the personally identifying information that we may have concerns people don't want to access already, right? That's the nature of how people get here. I think there's some really incredible things that are happening in our city right now. Councilmember Wansley highlighted $1 million raised through our school families, through mutual aid funds and GoFundMes. There's been approximately $10 million raised in the last couple of weeks that is almost entirely going towards rental assistance directly, paying people's rents, right? So our community is doing everything we can to catch people on the front end before they get served their eviction, before their eviction gets filed, before they receive their summons. This pot of money is about catching the people that we don't find, that don't get connected to a mutual aid network, that aren't able to connect with their neighbors and get their need met. This is for the people that slip through the cracks. This amount of money, if you are a person who is either a senior, have children, or have a disability, your entire backlog of rent is completely paid for. $1 million would allow for 250 families to benefit from this assistance. That's the scale of need, right? And 250 families, I don't know if that sounds like a lot or a little to you. I think it's a drop in the bucket compared to the need I personally see. And I'm just one person in the city from my perspective, right? So I think I want to just talk very briefly about discrimination. This was brought up during committee as well, and again here today, and I would urge us to reflect back on the actual language of the resolution, which has no mention of these resources being catered to only people who are impacted by the presence and occupation that ICE is conducting in our city right now. The exact language is one-time rental assistance for residents in need. So I just, let's please stick to the facts as we're going through these conversations. As the budget chair, I really want to implore us to use contingency as the mechanism to fund this, right? Contingency is 1% of our general fund expenditures. It is money that is set aside for emergencies every single year. In a couple of the conversations I had with colleagues yesterday, I did hear there was a concern that contingency needed to be backfilled within a calendar year. That is not true. And this is the best way for us to get an urgent need in our community met, while also preventing any cuts to services or frontline programs, or taking money out of our cash balance when we know the amount of overtime for police and fire that's already been spent this year. We shouldn't be putting our financial position as a city in a worse condition. And this is the best way we were able to come up with to make that a reality at the pace it needs to. And then the last thing I want to just lift up is, since Monday night, I have been in touch with so many of my constituents and just people across the South Side who have found their way to me through word of mouth. Since Monday night, the amount of rental assistance that just the people that I've been in touch with need is nearly $76,000. That's the scale of need. Every person who we are not able to crowdfund their rent is someone who is likely to face an eviction. Every single one of these parents, every single one of these people are parents. I spoke to a mom who is disabled. Her husband is in detention. She's now suddenly become a single parent. She's behind on rent. Every story is tragic. It is heartbreaking. This is one small piece of the puzzle, and I think this is a moment where we can be united in saying we're going to do every last thing we can to protect the people that are slipping through the cracks. Please, I urge you all to support this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilmember Vital.
Thank you, President Payne. Thank you, Councilmember Chuktai, for your comments. I think you're right. We should all support this. I think where the issue is that we have a difference of opinion on where the money should come from. And I find it to be challenging to listen to a conversation about where we know things aren't going to pass versus where we know we have the votes for something to pass, because that's all got to play out up here. I think it's smart for us to vote how we know there'll be success from this council to this community. And I think all 13 of us knows what that is, right? So like anything outside of that to me feels performative and feels like a forced vote for something that you know is not going to pass. We can act like we don't know, but we know. So I think like there's a pot of money that all of us may not agree on, but we know thank you, Councilmember Palmisano and Councilmember Warren, for talking through this. I had a lot of questions about how these programs actually work. You answered the questions that I had 2 days ago when I wasn't even at a place of being certain if I could vote for this. So I appreciate you answering my questions about the program itself, and then about how we fund it, how we get to a place where all of us can vote on making sure this money gets to Hennepin County. Because one thing we had a great presentation yesterday from Director Sayers, who is the head of our, Emergency management. There we go. And she said something that I've heard a lot in the last month, that families who really need these services aren't going to use the county. They're too afraid to give their information. And the most telling thing she said was, if we're supporting families, not as a council, but just as people, we shouldn't tell people that something is specifically for rent we should just give people a dollar amount for a household and let them choose their needs in their household. Because some people may need rent, some people may need food, some people may need utilities, some people may need to get their car fixed. There's a lot of expenses people are having in the household at this time. And so in my mind, I would like to figure out how we can get people just a dollar amount and they're able to use it. And I had some great conversations with philanthropy this week where I think we'll make some progress in that area. What I'm afraid of is this is a one-time thing for families. From my understanding, from speaking to Councilmember Warren, you can apply for Hennepin County assistance like once a year. And so these families have a one-time opportunity to apply for this. We don't know what the impact of this is going to be in 3 months. So we have people who are going to apply this month. Hopefully they get it. I want anybody who applies to get it. But we're not going to have an opportunity for them to get this money again in 3 months or even this year at all. So I have deep concerns about that, especially knowing that this can get worse. 250 families is, that's fantastic. We want that. We want to help 250 families. We want to keep fundraising. We want to give people what they need. But I know the language. I've read it. I understand, like, it's not to target a certain group of people. It's not discriminatory. But I know how this conversation started. And I just don't know that this is going to impact the people that we need it to impact, if they're going to access it, if they're going to be eligible. And I still haven't got answers on the county's backlog, because this doesn't get expedited in their system. They have already applications. My understanding is that they already have a lot of applications they're working through now, and this gets put in as people apply. So I don't know. I heard from people who said, I applied for rental assistance and I didn't get it. I was denied. I don't even know how I didn't get it or why I didn't get it. I thought some people said I tried to fill out the application and it just rejected it right away. Some people said I got an interview and I thought I was getting it, and they denied me. And these are some of the most vulnerable people in this city who said they couldn't even get it. And so I'm fearful that we're giving it to the county, but we're not giving it to the people who need it. And so I support, I think it's Councilmember Whiting's resolution. I'm on board for that, but I really do think the larger conversation for us as a council is to look at how we actually support families and how we actually get the money in their pockets so they can make a decision for their household, and how the city can better support them. If that's us individually fundraising, if that's us calling on to community partners, if that's us, we just had a wonderful Ward 4 resident here today for the Black History Month celebration, Destiny Prosper, who's raised $30,000 for Lucy Laney families herself. She single-handedly did that. She's helping with rental assistance. I mean, I know we can't fundraise to get ourselves out of this, but I do think for now we could help, and we can use our resource. We could take our time as a city to figure out a strategy and a plan to make sure 3 months from now, 5 months from now, and a year from now that we are still able to support those families when the worst of the worst is going to happen. Thank you.
Vice President Osmond.
Thank you so much, President Payne. So immigrant, a council member who's here, a member of this body, and someone who federal government attacked its community, my community. I think I can speak for immigrants. What have we done since this crisis has happened? Other than go to the press conference and just talk and tell people they have rights, which I don't even know we do anymore. What is the city of Minneapolis doing? What's more crisis than what we're facing today on the streets of the city of Minneapolis? Look back to the history. It's up there. We got families that are getting kidnapped. Maybe the average person in Minneapolis not thinking about, I don't know who's going to pick up my kids today from school when I'm no longer there and I've been kidnapped by ICE and in a few hours back to Texas. it's about the children. It's about this human beings that are being attacked by so many ways. It's not about choosing one group or another. It's about responding to specific harm that's happening to our most vulnerable people, immigrants, who are being targeted. Maybe it's not happening your community you're a member of today, but history teaches it happens to all the communities. We're being targeted. I don't know if you watch the national news. We're being called garbage. We're being othered. We're being discriminated. We're being killed in Minneapolis on the streets. I don't know what's more emergency than going to the contingent funding. This is what the city is supposed to do. It's supposed to look out for its citizens, and community members are raising money. That's great, but we can sit here and say, oh, the local government's not doing anything. We can't even touch specific money that we put for this kind of activities or this kind of situation when they arise. So I don't know. It's kind of really sad that to hear that we can't tap this money because it's not emergency enough or for whatever reason. It is more emergency than anything else. I'm looking at the city leadership. I'm looking at the administration. Enough with the press conferences and promises that's not really. It's here. We heard yesterday. They will be here. They're not leaving. Your conversation on the federal government. I'm looking at the governor. I'm looking at the mayor. I'm looking at all the council members, at the city leaders. This is needed. This is actually one of the least thing we can do. We're not protecting our residents out there that are being kidnapped, that are being harassed. We can't even do anything because we are afraid of being invaded by the military. It's been very difficult and emotional for everyone. And we can kind of throw all kind of things out there and say, people are afraid to go seek money for the government. No. If I can't pay the rent, I'm going to go get the money from anywhere there is. Because Minneapolis has a separation ordinance. People understand. People trust me. They trust people like Councilmember Chavez, who can communicate through that. City of Minneapolis is safe, a place that you can go get help. If this fails, I will be the most disappointing thing the entire time I've been here. There's absolutely nothing more emergency than what's been happening the last 4 years. It's not happening to all groups, but it's happening to specific groups that are being targeted, that have it the hardest. The stories are horrifying. A mom who just gave birth was snatched from her baby. In a few hours, she was put in an airplane. She would never see that baby again. Is that a story that any human being can relate to? So let's save that baby's house today. That's what it's about. And thank you, colleagues, for speaking out, for continuing to stand for the marginalized communities, for targeted communities by the strong force of federal government. Thank you.
Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, President Payne. I just wanted to address some of the concerns raised about Hennepin County's ability or efficacy in being able to administer these funds. And some of the concerns I heard raised during our conversation right now and even on Tuesday was rooted in perceptions around fraudulent activities. And I just first want to implore us to use caution when using fraud as a basis of creating distrust with government agencies, especially in light of that same type of rhetoric being weaponized by right-wing and MAGA pundits and officials who used it and weaponized it to lay the groundwork for Trump's enactment of Operation Metro Surge, which has created the conditions for us to even have to consider rental assistance in the first place to protect residents who are having to shelter in place as a defense mechanism against ICE. So I would just implore us to be cautious about using that language. And also just to further double down on the fact that Hennepin County is a reputable agency. our own staff highlighted this on Tuesday, but they have attorneys who advise them on how to comply with all relevant rules and regulations. And they have been dispersing rental assistance for years in a legally compliant and legitimate way. And they've actually won national recognition for this work. And I would implore also, if any member of this body has evidence that Hennepin County is committing fraud in rental assistance, then please go submit evidence to the authorities located right across the street, or consider joining the MAGA movement, because those are kind of the two avenues that you have right now. But I want to note also, I shared this on Tuesday, the county also sent a letter over to this body where they highlighted, once again, their ability to meet this need. Specifically in the letter sent by David Hewitt, the Director of Housing Stability there, the letter states in 2025 alone, Hennepin County administered approximately $11 million in emergency rental assistance to 3,000 households facing eviction. And they were able to do so effectively by braiding a variety of state and local funding sources with unique requirements and criteria, while ensuring payments were delivered in a timely manner for applicants, averaging 14 days from the initial request in 2025. And then with the ability to be able to deploy these resources using even the city's appropriation that we're considering today. At the end of the letter, they named Hennepin County has the ability to leverage its various funding streams in Rent Help Hennepin to ensure any new funding for rental assistance reaches residents quickly and while a funding agreement is codified. So there is parameters and procedures in place to make sure that these dollars get out the door once they are approved and sent over to Hennepin County upon the completion of that joint agreement or funding agreement that we talked about yesterday and that staff mentioned is a requirement of this process. So I at least wanted to highlight that they have the ability to. And once again, to reiterate, there is no way you are going to GoFundMe our way out of a eviction crisis. This funding, governmental funding, is literally the last line of defense, and Councilmember Chucktie highlighted this. For every single person who do not have access to a mutual aid network or who are not able to have a neighbor fundraise for them, this is a resource for them, because there's thousands of residents who do not have access to that network. And as Councilmember Osmond highlighted, they will be seeking out support from their governmental partners. And state legislators know that, because when they move their emergency rental assistance package, which is being led by Senator Port, guess where they're sending that money to? They're not sending it to your local neighbors. They're sending it to counties. They're sending it to fellow aligned governmental agencies to disperse emergency relief so that people can have the resources they need to stay housed. So this is one of the ways in which we can prevent eviction, as opposed to waiting for it to happen and still being the same conundrum of people being at our doors saying, why did you let this happen, when you had a mechanism to prevent it? And this gives us that preventative opportunity to show up for our residents who are doing 10 times more than any of us are doing in this moment. It has been for several weeks. To say $1 million is a drop in the bucket of what we can offer right now, and we're going to do everything that we can to mobilize other governmental leaders to give and mobilize resources with the expediency that it deserves and the urgency it deserves.
You're out of time, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Yep. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Council President Payne and Minority Leader Wansley. I appreciate your comments. And we won't use the word fraud, but what we will say, if you're offended by that, I don't want to offend you in that respect, but it definitely is a very real and present instance that we are facing here in the state of Minnesota. My uncle drove for Metropolitan Transit for over 5-6 years, ended up with stage 4 cancer, living in his apartment right in Southside Minneapolis in the City View, right off of Hiawatha. He also did part-time property management there, so his apartment was discounted because of his property management. When he ended up with stage 4 cancer just this past year, was not able to get an expedited caddy waiver, was not able to get emergency assistance, was not able to get any of his essential needs met because there was not a plan for sustainability. Again, I want to highlight so that you understand, because I have been a welfare recipient. I received 437. I stood in the food stamp line on Franklin. I know how these programs work. So when you go down there and you apply, what they're going to ask you is, do you have the ability to pay going forward? If we provide you with $2,000, $2,500, if we activate an application because your lights are getting cut off or your gas is getting disconnected, what is your plan for sustainability going forward? If we have families who are unfortunately being kidnapped and robbed and taken away from whomever, and they do not have sustainable income in the household, they are not going to be eligible for these targeted funds. Again, the individuals who need it will not be the ones who receive it. And we have to also keep in mind, even pivoting these funds to nonprofit organizations who, again, the county is reputable, these nonprofit organizations are reputable, but anytime they give out a dollar, be it petty cash or what have you, there has to be an accounting of a name, place, who, what, where, why, when, how, what this looked like and what it was for, of where these funds went to. I am licensed with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. When you fill out a 9902 form to report to HUD of what you do with funding, it states who, what, where, why, when, and how. Anything with respect to housing. So I want us to be cautious and educated on what it is that we're doing. I'm not saying that I don't want to help our immigrant families and families in need. We not only have people who need rental assistance, but we also have families that are homeowners that are drowning in their homeowner debt because they cannot afford to pay their mortgages because they have been disrupted and disenfranchised in this situation. We need to figure out how to help them too. But it will not be able to come from a city or a county or a nonprofit organization. It is going to take individual collective efficacy. And if people are in fear of data breach, data privacy, disruption, people following Uber drivers, food delivery people, and all of these other things that are jeopardizing the safety and well-being of our immigrant families and community members, we have to be cautious and very careful of what protection looks like and how we protect those individuals. And I don't believe that it is something that should be discussed on a dais. I think we should take a note during this great Black History Month out of the Underground Railroad and not be blasting people's business all over the city, because that is not how we protect our most vulnerable. That is not how that works. And I thank you so much for your time, consideration. I love you all. The end.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Thank you, Council President. I have a few questions. I'm not sure if the clerk, attorney, or you, Mr. President, can answer these for me. I am new, as well as some others here, and so I just have a few questions about the different funds. What is the definition of what an eligible use for the contingency fund?
Mr. Attorney, would you like to speak to that?
Unfortunately, I'm not the appropriate person to speak to that. I think if we could have someone from finance here to speak to how the fund balances work. Are they in the back? Okay.
Do we have any professional staff in the back that could come to the chambers to speak to Councilmember Stevenson's question? welcome. Did you catch the question from?
I did not.
Okay. Councilmember Stevenson, would you like to ask your question again, and then if you could introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my question is, what's the definition of allowable uses for a contingency fund?
Through the chair, council members, contingency is defined only in the financial policies. I believe the language, and perhaps the budget chair has it pulled up, but is around unanticipated expenses.
Councilmember Chugtai?
Yeah, thank you. Contingency in our financial policies is defined as the budget that we set aside for undesignated expenditures. These expenditures cannot be placed in departmental budgets, primarily because the level and timing of expenditures are uncertain when the budget is adopted. These funds are earmarked for emergency or unanticipated expenses, special projects, or revenue shortfalls. What that means is an eligible use is something that we could not have planned for when we adopted the budget in December of 2025.
Thank you.
Is that accurate, CFO? Deputy
Through the chair, yes, I think it is largely, the language is not more specific than that. And I believe I forgot to introduce myself. So Jane DeSenza, I'm the Deputy CFO for the city.
Thank you. And we haven't met, so I'm looking forward to sit down sometime. This crisis we're in seems unanticipated. I don't think any of us thought we would be starting this term with the federal government murdering our neighbors. And it started in December, but kidnapping thousands and thousands of others. So this seems pretty unanticipated and urgent to me. Could someone please share what the last use of contingency funds was?
Deputy CFO, do you recall? Correct.
Through the chair, the council has voted affirmatively a few times over the past few years. I believe Agate was one of the last. I know there was potentially a Vivo South when that was under deliberations was going to be. And then just generally in operations, when we overspend our expenditure budget, that is also a reason for the contingency to be there. That's why it's so important that we have a contingency budgeted every year. So when we have cost overruns and revenue shortfalls, as we had last year, the contingency is a valuable cushion for that as well.
Are we expecting overruns currently?
Through the chair, Councilmember, yes, absolutely. Departments are incurring major costs in responding to this crisis. And so we have a very small cushion of general fund balance before we hit our minimum fund balance. And then the contingency is further cushion there.
Okay. So are there current plans to use this contingency for certain uses?
Through the chair, there are not specific plans to use it, but it's early in the year. We don't know what else may befall us besides this crisis. And so I think finance would urge caution in deploying further resources at the moment.
Okay. How often were contingency funds used last year?
Through the chair, I do not believe there was a council vote on contingency funds, but we'd have to do some LIMS research to confirm that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, from what I see,
Councilmember Stevenson, I think our budget chair may have an answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there were, the Agate example that Deputy CFO DeSenza highlighted, I know you experienced that as a person that was impacted on the employee side in that important fight. That was a use of contingency that was approved contingent on matching funds, and so it never actually went out the door, even though the use was approved. Another example that comes to mind is the MIWRC, the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, where we authorized $100,000 for them to expand their warming shelters and have the capacity to keep those open longer. That was a use of contingency that was both approved and actually went out the door.
I didn't realize when I started this line of questioning that I was personally involved with both uses of the contingency last year. That's interesting. So it sounds like housing issues have been a frequent use of contingency funds, at least recently. I do want to mention again that this is perhaps the most unanticipated and most urgent situation we potentially could have imagined. So this really fits the definition of what contingency could be used for, as far as I am seeing it. And I would urge my colleagues to do this as well. I would like to note one thing about another use, and I'm not realizing how much time. I have 30 seconds left. If we take this money from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we will be going against stated priorities of this body, including the mayor in his inauguration speech. He spoke very eloquently and powerfully about building affordable housing everywhere in the city. Cutting these funds will go directly against that. I support the mayor's priority of building more affordable housing. My community, on a day-to-day, prior to the invasion, housing issues were the biggest issues, dealing with unsheltered homelessness, dealing with evictions, rents being too high, it being too expensive to buy a home. So I'm loath to take from affordable housing in order to do this, and I see this as the most urgent and unanticipated expense, and so I would urge us to use contingency funds for that purpose.
Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I want to start actually by addressing a question that Councilmember Vitaw asked quite a while ago during discussion, which is around what is the backlog of the resources for rental assistance at Hennepin County. It has been confirmed yesterday through the Director of Housing Stability at Hennepin County that there is currently no backlog for the rental assistance fund at Hennepin County. I think as we were having this discussion on Tuesday, there were several sets of numbers that were thrown around, and it took us a little bit of time as we were having this discussion to just dig a little bit deeper, double check, triple check what's happening. So of the $10 million that they have allocated, approximately at this point, about $1 million of that has been dispersed to every person who has applied and has been eligible to receive these funds, and it is important to note that the $1 million at this point in the year is comparable to last year, which tells us that the severity of the crisis has not yet hit. Where evictions are being filed. A part of that is also that we've extended pre-eviction notice here in Minneapolis, which means that, if you're a person that didn't pay your rent in January, you're likely getting your pre-eviction notice and you had an additional cushion. And so I think that's an important factor. I appreciate that we have talked about, how our emergency management director has brought up the roadmap ahead. That that recovery from this moment that we are living through, that we don't know when it's going to end, right, is going to take years and years. I think an important factor that both our deputy CFO and our economic development staff have brought up is what happens as half of all immigrant-owned businesses in our city are shut down. What happens as people's hours are cut, they're losing their jobs, they're sheltering in place, their families are being impacted by family separation through deportations. As there's more economic instability within individual families, the risk of people losing their homes and then subsequently having an eviction that follows them on their record permanently, making it harder for them to access housing for the next decade of that family's life, right? What happens as people then are pushed out of our city and the economic impact that has on property values here. That we need to, the best tools we have right now are ones that keep our communities stable. This is the last safety net that catches people before they end up unstable, out of a home, unable to rent it again, forced to leave the city and be displaced out of Minneapolis. And I think that is just worth continuing to uplift. And then I want to end with talking about the people who need this assistance and whether they will be eligible to receive it. I really feel like I need to strongly assert that if you are a person who is making minimum wage and you couldn't pay your rent for whatever reason, and you have been served eviction papers, you are a person in need, objectively. And, we got to move past saying that the wrong group of people or people who don't really need it are going to end up with this assistance. Thank you.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Thank you, President Payne. And thank you, first of all, to all my colleagues for bringing this important topic forward. I hear all of our hearts around this issue, and it is time to bring this forward for a discussion. I had a couple more questions for Director DeZenza. First of all, could you give me an overview of where we are approximately at over budget across all departments and related to the ICE scourge on our city?
Through the chair, Councilmember Schaefer, we've seen at least $5 million of spending from city departments just associated with those couple weeks in January. So for just the police department, I think we're at $4.3 million in overtime associated with this response. So if you project that out, certainly over budget.
And then there's Minneapolis Fire Department, Public Works. Would those be the main two other departments that have been greatly affected?
Through the chair, I think every city department has contributed staff time and energy to our emergency operations center. I know finance, the CPED, health, we could go through all 26 departments. They are all contributing hours to that response.
Yep. Thank you. And do you foresee that any of these impacts as we continue this year could affect our long-term health, our budgetary health, or our bond rating? Could you kind of speak just from your 50,000-foot perspective on that impact?
Through the chair, council members, certainly zooming out, the city has many obligations, and we serve all of our residents, and we need to meet those obligations. As I mentioned previously, we have a small cushion between where our general fund balance is projected to sit at the end of 2026, assuming departments don't overspend their budgets this year. And again, that may be difficult given what they are being forced to do because of the federal incursion. The risk long-term for the city, if we are to deplete our resources this year, we've been put on notice by bond rating agencies. They are watching our use of fund balance. We have a AAA rating, and that matters for constituents because it allows us to borrow at a lower rate to do our capital work. Yeah. So I think the concern long-term would be that without raising property taxes, we would risk dipping below that minimum fund balance, and residents would feel the impacts of that.
Thank you for those comments. I appreciate that's all the questions I had. I do have some questions for this potential third proposal that may come forward. I'm happy to ask those now of Director Hansen, or if we should wait till later. President Payne, do you have a preference?
You have 4 minutes.
All right. Director Hansen, I had a couple questions around this. I noticed in the language, I didn't foresee any specifics around a joint committee established in the resolution. Can you speak to a little bit about how this partnership would work and what authority we would have or ability to put boundaries on the direction of the use of that funds might be? In particular, obviously, we would like to make sure this doesn't go to suburban county residents, but would stay in Minneapolis. Secondly, is there options for condo owners or homeowners in this housing assistance area, or is this specific rental? Is there flexibility within Hennepin County to look at both of those? Those would be the main two things to start with.
All right. Good morning, Council President Payne, council members. My name is Eric Hansen. I am the director of CPED. And to answer through Council President Payne, Councilmember Schaefer's questions, the first question, I don't know exactly what resolution you're looking at, but if it's the one that's published in LIMS under Councilmember Wansley's name, this is for rental assistance through the county through a joint powers agreement for those impacted by Operation Metro Surge. Is that correct? Any. Okay, because I was looking at was in LIMS file. We would work on a agreement with the county. That agreement would come back to the council for approval. It is our understanding it would be their current program. We would be adding funding to their current program under their current guidelines. I am not aware of any assistance, true rental assistance, that would affect homeowners. I don't believe that's in the cards in their programs. It is a question I can confirm, but you should be. You're probably looking at just renters in this program.
Okay. But that's something you could confirm with Hennepin County.
Confirm,
I know during COVID,
sure.
I believe there was some for homeowners, but I could be incorrect.
Through the Council President, Council Member Schaefer, there are some for eviction or foreclosure prevention programs. This is not one of those foreclosure prevention programs.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you, Director Hansen. That's all the questions that I had for you.
Thank you.
So, yes, I would love to see some joint powers agreement added to this language, unless I'm missing something here in the third resolution that we will get to eventually. But I do want to say I cannot support taking this $1 million from the contingency or the general fund. When I hear the Director of Finances of our city describe that we've already gotten question marks about our bond rating, when there is already $5 million of overtime spent, that we need to take care of the residents of our city, that gives me pause. So I will not be able to support use. I am supportive of rental assistance, but in the first case of contingency funds, I will not be able to support. Thank you.
Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Council President Payne. Director DeSenza, can you let us know what percentage of the $1 million that is being proposed is for the entire budget?
Through the chair, could you repeat the question, please?
What percentage of the $1 million, what percentage is that compared to the entire city budget?
The entire city budget is on the order of $2 billion. Our general fund is around $700 million. So the contingency is required to be 1% of the general fund budget.
Great. Thank you. Colleagues and Council President Payne, I hope that members of the public are actually watching this meeting unfold and that they rewatch the committee of the whole meeting, because I am extremely disappointed. I did not hear concerns about a source until today. In fact, what we heard in Cal and today is that this vote is somehow fraudulent and that we are cherry picking, which is not true. That rhetoric is very dangerous. In fact, it is the same rhetoric that Donald Trump uses to kidnap our immigrant neighbors in this country. It is not fraudulent to want to prevent the eviction of our neighbors. It is not fraudulent to support neighbors with rental assistance. It is not fraudulent to lift the voices of our immigrant neighbors who are in need. It is not fraudulent to want to support neighbors who need help with rental assistance despite their immigration background. And I will say that our immigrant neighbors and neighbors who are in need, which can be two separate communities, live in every single ward in the city of Minneapolis. I would encourage members of this body, this 13-member body that I'm disappointed to be a part of today, to talk to your constituents. Neighbors across the city are scared right now. They are late in paying rent. February 1st just passed. Rental eviction notices are on the rise. And I'm just extremely disappointed about this conversation today. It actually makes me sick to my stomach. What I have heard from residents across the city of Minneapolis is that we are not doing enough and that we need to do more. And what I will say is that we cannot rely on the backs of our neighbors and our neighbors across the country to keep everyone on float. We should not be asking the community to fundraise if we aren't willing to fund those same initiatives. I also need to bring us back to what Minneapolis residents are experiencing, because I think it's important to center what we are doing today instead of this quote-unquote fraudulent activity. I will say that many of our neighbors have been impacted by Operation Metro Surge, and those individuals are also our neighbors. People impacted by Operation Metro Surge are our residents. They may not be able to vote sometimes, but they are our residents, despite their immigration background. I have never felt more unwelcome on the city council until today. I will say that out loud. I am freaking heartbroken. There was a 2-year-old in Ward 9 that was kidnapped by ICE in Parterhorn. Is that not an emergency to people in this body? Does that not raise alarms? 2 Minneapolis residents were murdered by federal agents. A Latino resident was shot in the leg in North Minneapolis. A Latino resident was kidnapped in Minnesota by ICE and then died under custody in Texas. Our community members are being kidnapped on bus stops on the way to work. And those who came to live the American dream are now facing the American nightmare. This is only $1 million. It is not even enough to meet the need of our actual neighbors who are struggling in Minneapolis. I am so freaking proud of Minneapolis residents. They are definitely meeting the needs of our community members in their own ways. And our neighbors in Minneapolis understand the importance of what our neighbors are experiencing. But I will continue to say that the conversation that we had in Committee of the Whole and today is not matching what our residents are experiencing on the ground. I ask that folks talk to your neighbors and hear about the sentiments that they're experiencing, because when they watch this meeting, they're going to be so disappointed. I will support the underlying motion because this is an emergency. In fact, I hope that everybody in this body agrees that an occupation of a city is an emergency. And if that doesn't pass, then I will support the motion for cash fund, because we can't exacerbate the affordable housing crisis at the same time either. Thank you.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you so much, President Payne. I just wanted to do a couple of things in my comments. I had questions, but I also wanted to state a few different facts. First, 50% of the awards of the Rent Help Hennepin go to the city of Minneapolis already. So that just, one, goes to state the existing need for our city when it comes to emergency rental assistance and how it's compounding right now. And then $1 million is 0.05% of our city's total budget. I'm really glad to hear that Hennepin County is willing to work with our city to make this work however they want and dedicate it to the city of Minneapolis if that's what we are choosing to do, which I am supportive of. And if we dedicated it entirely to the city of Minneapolis, that would increase the available rent help money for Minneapolis by 20%. I had a few questions for Director Hansen, if that's all right. I specifically wanted to get a picture from you about the fiscal cliff of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. You and I have had several conversations about this last budget season, and I've been thinking a lot about it as we see the LAHA allocation before us. I know it says LAHA, but LAHA is severely overprescribed by the city of Minneapolis. That was a huge part of the discussion we had. We faced a crisis around shelter operations and agreed as a body together that in our city budget process, we would move it there. But it was also a conversation with a lot of caution that this would, if we continued to take from LAHA, it would impact the Affordable Housing Trust Fund directly, or perhaps even the Minneapolis Homes program, which allows for the creation of affordable home ownership opportunities in our community. So I just wanted to get the picture from you about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund financial cliff.
Director Hansen.
Council President Payne, Council Member Chowdhury, yes. So the way we have set up our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, it connotes a thing of like there's just funding in it, but the city funds it every year through its annual budget. And it's what is the thing that provides funding for affordable housing units all through the city of Minneapolis. That had been funded by some discretionary funds that were targeted towards this type of use, mainly through tax increment financing districts that are coming off of TIF and going back to the tax rolls, which is a positive thing for the overall tax base, but it takes away from that source. And so every time we take money away from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, it gets us closer to the end of that fiscal cliff. And I'm looking up my stats, and it really basically impacts how many units we can support. Typically, the council and the mayor have set the Affordable Housing Trust Fund at about $18 million a year. That will precipitously decline over the next couple of years because we will lose that TIF funding in about a majority of it in 2027. So in the 28-29 is where we'll see that start to dip. Without other financing sources, we'll just have fewer dollars for affordable housing production. So if you take money today from the affordable housing production, from the trust fund, it just means this year we'll have fewer housing units that we can invest in. And next year, because it would be one time, next year we will still be in the same situation. But fewer houses today, and I think about it when we help produce affordable housing units, that is affordable housing units for the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. So they compound and they're cumulative in the housing ecosystem in the city. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Okay. And just a follow up to that is we have only a certain amount of the allocation that we get from the state for LAHA. And is it true to state that by the time we get to 2027 and onwards, we'll be using most of that allocation as projected for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to address the fiscal cliff, and some for the Minneapolis Homes program?
In 20 seconds.
Yeah, through the council president, Councilmember Chaudhry, perhaps. Those decisions have not been made, but that will be one of our main funding sources. Thank you.
I'll just close by saying the watchdog for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is no longer on the council, so some of us have to take that mantle up, and it's overprescribed. We need this for affordable projects to happen long into the future, and that's why I'm supporting contingency funding. I think we can get 10 votes for this. I think it's important that we do it, and I think it's a better option than our cash fund, but if we have to vote for a cash fund today, that's what I'll ultimately end up doing.
Councilmember Whiting.
Thank you, President Payne. First, I think we want to center this on our discussions that we've been having for weeks. And this is something that I think all of us are seeing as an emergency. I think all 13 of us sit here and with the mayor agree that this version of assistance is required and is an emergency in this moment. And if this is an emergency, I think it is on all of us to figure out a way to actually move this forward. I believe that this emergency does fit within the definition of contingency funds, but I also believe that if this does not go forward, we have to figure out the best way to actually get these funds into people's hands as soon as we can. That being the case, I believe LAHA funding in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund is the best version for that. As all of you sat through, I know all of us sat through a meeting kind of discussing our financial picture. We just had our deputy director discuss with us and tell us in a lot of flowery words that we're broke. I think we all know and have heard that this is kind of where our city is at, and I think continuing to pull from general funds will exacerbate the issues that our city not will just have for the city of Minneapolis and not this body, but every single one of our residents and the same exact residents that we hope to serve with what we're doing today. That said, I just want to read the first eligible use for LAHA funding, local affordable housing aid, as prescribed by the state. The first qualifying projects include emergency rental assistance for households earning less than 80% of area median income. If we are looking at the definition of how funds should be used, LAHA funding is particularly subscribing an eligible use for emergency rental assistance. I don't believe there's a better definition for that across our city. And again, I kind of want to add here, and we'll end with this. We are seeing good work across the city, not just by our residents as they are standing up and doing the work, but our employees as well in the city. We are seeing it by the large overrun, both by MPD, fire, and public works, and across our city, people putting in the work to actually show up for our neighbors. And I believe we are trying to do that as well. While I will be supporting our contingency funds, I cannot support any level of pull from our general funds because I believe that will only exacerbate the issues that we have. And I think none of us want to move forward. We don't believe any of these funds are, I think, ideal, but we are in an emergency situation. We have to figure out how to get there. And I hope and I urge all of you to consider our LAHA funding as well. So thank you.
Councilmember Fita.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few things. Councilmember Warren, I'm sorry that you're being compared to MAGA because you have an opinion about Hennepin County, its funding, its programs, its procedures. Last year or maybe the year before, a council member sitting on this body accused the city of Minneapolis of waste, fraud, and abuse, and that in no way was compared to MAGA. So I don't think just because you use those words, that means that you're MAGA. You have an opinion, you stated it, you talked about not only using the services yourself, but also helping others in our communities to use the service. I relied heavily on you because I know you have experience. So you spent hours talking to me about how these programs work from a place of knowing yourself and also helping hundreds of families use these programs and gain access. So I would say you're the opposite of MAGA because I don't think they would ever help anybody get any type of assistance, especially someone on welfare. They actually think the opposite of it. So thank you very much for using your expertise. I'm so proud to have you here sitting on this dais. I don't even have that expertise, and I'm so grateful for you being here. You don't deserve that. You should. What I love about this job is when something comes up about public health, that's what I have over 20 years of experience in, and I get to talk about it. I have personal experience and also professional experience. So I'm sorry, I'm apologizing. I'm not apologizing for the body. I'm apologizing because you don't deserve that. It's unnecessary. It really is. You get to have your opinion, and I know this is meeting too, and I'm drained already for how you got treated in this meeting for having an opinion and having expertise and subject matter content for something. So sorry, Councilmember Warren. To the comment about there not being a waiting list, there's somebody in this audience that texted me and said they were told by Hennepin County that they're on the waiting list. So I don't know where this, information about a waiting list or not is coming from, but I know I've heard from lots of people that they're on the waiting list and they don't even know. I mean, I heard from people who called me directly and said, give the $1 million because I'm on the waiting list and I don't know why I'm on the waiting list. So if you all give the $1 million, you can, I can maybe get off the waiting list or find out if I'm eligible or not. So I don't know if there's a waiting list or not. I wasn't able to find out, but I know that many people have reached out to me since we had the conversation on Tuesday about the waiting list and how they're on it and if they're going to be eligible for it. And I do agree that everyone should be eligible for it. My question, though, is for Director Hansen. We keep having these conversations about how much the county has versus what we have. There was, before I go to my question, so I don't lose my thought, there was a comment about the city's budget being $2 billion. It is $2 billion, but it's not $2 billion in the bank waiting. A lot of money has already been allocated to basic city services and what people are looking forward to us doing as a tax-paying resident or a resident of Minneapolis. So we don't just have $2 billion that we can call on. We did a budget that spent up a lot of money. The mayor's proposed budget, along with all the things that we wanted for our ward, cost money. They're not free. They don't get to just sit there. So we don't have $2 billion. This $1 million, it is a little bit in the bigger scheme of things, but it's not something that we've foreseen in any other budget. So we have to make a way to figure it out. But I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work. There's conversations around the county. Director Hansen, this is for you. I'm sorry. Gotcha. I may have called you up too soon. But the county has $10 million in their housing budget, is my understanding. We're going to give them $1 million. So now they'll have $11 million. I'm trying to understand, will we get our $1 million back if they don't use our $1 million? How soon will they use $10 million? If they use how much do they use a year, and will we get our money back? I guess it's two questions.
In 20 seconds.
In 20 seconds. Council President, Council Member, We will add it to the $10 million, and last year they told us they spent about $11 million in their program.
Okay.
And it would be an agreement that we would bring back to you with all of the details on how the money would be used.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. A few things. One, there's been a lot of discussion about the bond rating. Last year, when we were in much less crisis, MPD overspent its budget by $20 million. How did that affect our bond rating?
Deputy CFO.
Through the chair, Councilmember Stevenson, we meet with the CFO, along with our banking, investment, and debt team, meet with the bond rating agencies annually, I believe. They have an annual report, and that comes out, I believe, in the summer. You can take a look at it. They're on the city's website. So we have not yet had those processes again since that time.
Okay, thank you. What has changed in that department and in other departments in order to spend according to their budget?
Through the chair, Councilmember, it's a good question. I think there are ongoing conversations about what it would mean. The council member is referring to our police and fire departments overspent their budgets in 2025. You all will get a presentation from the controller upon year end, accounting year end of 2025 with the specific figures. Departments, including the police department, brought forward budget reduction scenarios through the budget process. Last year, one of the key things that the police department has changed is backing off of the critical staffing overtime, which was an elevated overtime rate that they had been in while they were understaffed. That is no longer the case, so they have a standard overtime rate going forward, and we anticipate savings from that. I believe the chief has also issued stricter policies around overtime usage.
Great, thank you. I'll have more questions, but they'll probably be rhetorical, so feel free to sit down. Given the financial state of the city, we should have a lot of questions about what's being done to limit department spending. I've heard from folks, both in the administration and on this council, that a large amount of money now is being used for graffiti removal, and that's having Public Works go over. Is that really where our money needs to go right now? I think rental assistance is vastly more important. I think our constituents need it. My constituents have been crystal clear that they have been demanding this of me, and they've been demanding this of all of us. So we're going to have to see some things go, and I think rental assistance is not one of those. We need this rental assistance, and we need to do it in a way that's not stealing from Peter in order to pay Paul. Lastly, LAHA is already allocated. We would be doling out lethal cuts to vital projects and services that I simply don't want to do. Yesterday, I met with Catholic Charities, which runs homeless shelters, among other things. Homeless shelters are an eligible use of LAHA, and we are still in a homelessness crisis. Taking LAHA and affordable housing dollars is it's much worse than stealing from Peter to pay Paul. It's relegating future evictions, future homelessness, and crushing financial stress and debt on our residents under the current housing crisis. So we can and we should use contingency funds, because this is a thing that is unanticipated, and we desperately need it. And we also desperately need our affordable housing projects and other housing services to be fully funded. And with that, I'll give it back to the President.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, President Payne. The facts given to us by Deputy CFO DeSenza have been front of mind to me this past week. I do recognize that other than Councilmember Vita as a park commissioner, others here on this dais were not around when we had to redo the budget several times until Councilmember Osmond joined us late in the year during the COVID crisis and pandemic. We've all been exploring how to best show up with what we can possibly afford with city dollars in this moment. We all get deeply personal stories of need, immediate and dire need, these days more than ever for the crisis that we're in. At the same time, Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, and they've given me permission to source them, they report to me that rent collections are tracking with normal rent collections right now. That's the macro view, and that's as of today. But we all know that this road is very long, and that philanthropy is filling known needs right now, but likely not into the future as long as it's going to need to go. So, of course, I see a huge need for emergency rental assistance in our community. This is an unprecedented time, and I support the intent of this resolution, but I do not agree with this funding source. Using contingency funds has a very high bar, and using them for this purpose would be short-sighted. I'm very concerned about our general and contingency fund balances right now. We did not anticipate the enterprise cost of responding to Operation Metro Surge. This would be for things like an immense amount of staff time in emergency operations that includes every department, police, public works, communications, and on. These increased costs were not forecast in our 2026 budget, and the strain on our general fund is going to be significant. But earlier, my colleague said, what are we really doing? And I think that is a slap in the face to every single city worker who has been showing up in this moment. This isn't business as usual. City workers are not going about our days as though nothing is wrong. Every department of our city is showing up differently. There is a CPED representative in the EOC overnight on weekends. That is in addition to their regular day-to-day job. So this is not meant, this money, it is not meant to be a public philanthropy fund. Yes, the Agate idea was successful. I think it was a couple of years ago. It was unprecedented at the time, and it was an unsuccessful ultimate attempt at using it for philanthropy. Agate did not, to my recollection, get the rest of that money together. But thank you to every worker in the city enterprise for working so very hard this past month in responding to this unprecedented crisis. And also, they are getting to everything that we also need every day to have a city that works. People all over our city have been part of that. Residents, people that care about our city from overseas even. I know that other cities, department heads and bureaucrats are seeing how great Minneapolis is doing in this moment, and they are asking for advice on how they responsibly respond to ICE agents in their cities. Our role here is about coordination in this moment, not about being able to fill the need with local government funds, because we will never be able to fulfill that need. $1 million is a significant and monumentally difficult amount of money to find in this moment. And it should come from decisions we made last year on how much we can possibly put in our budget toward affordable housing. Last budget season, we made a decision not knowing the urgency of this moment. So let's make a different one. I am also, like Councilmember Stevenson said, loath to make this change. Long term, it's not a good one. Long term, it means we will get help to finance less 20 to 30-year affordable new housing units, for example. But in this moment, we need to find something, and we cannot stop responding as a city and delve into a terrible financial position. So I think we need to ground ourselves and one another on what our briefings have said, that government dollars is not what people need for rental assistance right now, that people struggling right now need cash, and let them decide what they are going to use for their different needs of the moment, and that equitable assistance has to be equitably distributed, and that is a really hard thing to do. And like Director Hansen said, not today but on Tuesday, it will take a while. The road here is very long, much longer than people are energized to donate in one moment, and perhaps able or willing to donate. So let's figure this problem out in a much longer term basis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Yes, I would just add this as for a thought process. I think there is general support across our body for this idea. We're getting hung up on how and what we should use to fund this idea. I believe that Hennepin County has some wiggle room still with the funding that they have. One option on the table would be for us to revisit this in a couple weeks, in a month, once Hennepin County has drawn down their funds, and reassess what is our budget at that point. Are we $10 million over budget at that point? I'm just saying, is that a more measured approach for us all to say, we know this is a problem, we know it's immediate, we know the GoFundMes have stepped up above and beyond. We all have contributed, right? And there is a role for the city to contribute. But is now the right timing, if we have disagreement, to make a decision that could impact our budget process this whole year? That's my question. Maybe some other people have some comments and have an ability to make a motion to head us in that direction better than I can as a newbie. So maybe can I make a motion to postpone all of these resolutions until, Chavez, help me. What do we want to postpone this till?
Today. Let's vote today for the actual money. Let's
Okay.
help people get rental assistance because they need it.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I will postpone to revisit on let's say end of March, and see where Hennepin County funds sit. I'm able and willing to change that date if that helps people come this direction. But I would make a motion to postpone all of these resolutions and revisit all of them with all the funding sources the end of March. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Schaefer made a motion to postpone to the end of March. I think we need a date certain. I would say the 19th would be the next, the kind of endish March council meeting. It's been seconded. We have Councilmember Schaefer in queue, but maybe you've said your piece. Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Council President Payne. I will urge my colleagues to vote against the delay of these motions. We are in an emergency. People are facing evictions. Rent was due on February 1st. We cannot continue to ask our community to fundraise for our neighbors if we are unwilling as a government willing to support them. I think it's time to vote. It's very clear that people have made decisions on how they're going to vote. I think we just need to vote. So I'm going to call the question on Councilmember Schaefer's motion to delay these items, which I disagree with. But I'm calling the question.
Councilmember Chavez called the question. Is there a second? That's been seconded. Mr. Clerk, call the roll on calling the question.
Councilmember Warren.
Nay.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Nay.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Nay.
Councilmember Vita.
No.
Councilmember Palmisano.
No.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Vice President Osmond. President Payne.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes and 5 nays.
And that requires 9, so that motion fails. And is there anybody who wants to discuss the motion to delay this item till the 19th? The clerk will call the roll on the motion to delay this to the 19th.
Oh,
Councilmember Vita.
Oh, thank you. I feel like every time I'm in the queue, somebody calls the question. It feels targeted. But my question was about what impact this would make for delay. I had never thought about that. So thank you, Councilmember Schaefer. What would be the impact on delay? Director Hansen, you said that the county uses $10 million a year of their own. And so if we gave them $1 million in 3 weeks or plus whatever time it takes to process, how could this affect that, like the ability for rental assistance right now?
Director Hansen.
Council President Payne, Councilmember Vita, we would still have to negotiate a deal and an agreement and bring it back to the council before the money would be ready for their fund. So this would delay that that conversation as well.
So just the agreement conversation, not like I guess I'm asking more about the services of the county, regardless of how this goes, they're still going to be processing applications.
Councilmember Payne, Councilmember Vita, yes, the county continues to take in applications.
And at any point in this process, our $1 million could come in and help, but it's not about like the timing isn't specific to right now.
Council President Payne, Councilmember Vita, it's up to the body to tell us that they have the money, and then we would negotiate that with the county, and then those funds would then be able to be transferred to the county after an agreement has been reached and approved by the council and the mayor. So that would still, but their program is still intact. Their program is still taking applications as of today. I don't want anybody in the community who's listening to say that they have to wait until the council acts, because there is still money at the county for rental assistance.
Okay, you answer my question. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One additional complication would be about if people will then still be eligible for their renter's credit. It shouldn't matter who is paying the rent, whether it's the county or the person with the lease. They should be able to get their renter's credit. There's concern about how that will work at the state level, and so we're going to need to be mindful of that. I think this is, I point this out because it's kind of like a brand new wrinkle just in my queue, but maybe something that shows that we should support a delay to iron out all these details. I do not want people to have to forego their renter's credit in order to be able to get assistance in this moment. Thank you.
Seeing no further folks in queue, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion to postpone this item to March 19th.
Councilmember Warren.
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Wansley.
Nay.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Nay.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Aye.
What?
No, nay, sorry. I am like, can't
You don't
keep
get to
it
tell
straight.
people how to vote.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Nay.
Councilmember Rainville.
I thought it was a different item.
Councilmember
Sorry.
Vita.
No one's
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
No.
Vice President Osmond.
No.
President Payne.
Nay.
There are 6 ayes and 7 nays.
That motion fails. We are returning to the underlying motion. I don't see anybody. Oh, Councilmember Chavez. No? All right. I'm going to add myself to queue. A lot of discussion here is on source and timing. On timing, there's nothing more urgent than what's happening in our community right now. We got a really robust briefing on the needs of our community from our professional staff in emergency operations. Part of that briefing was an acknowledgement that the fastest money is private money, and I agree with that. But the other half of that briefing was that recovery is not going to happen in 1 month. Recovery is not going to happen in 1 year. This is going to impact our city for years to come. It's going to impact the residents of our city for years to come. There are certainly people on the brink of eviction right now today, and many, many community members are stepping up to fill those gaps to save those people from the brink, but they're not saving everybody from the brink. And there are businesses that are currently closed indefinitely, which means they may open, they may be done forever. They may continue paying payroll. I've talked to some of the businesses in my community that are not cutting hours. They're not cutting payroll because they want to support their employees, but those businesses may not have the reserves to continue doing that for another 6 months, another year. And we're not also just talking about the members of our community that are most vulnerable and targeted as immigrants. We're talking about citizens that have just been struggling long before this crisis, and now this is yet another thing that is putting them deeper into crisis. And so there's no question about the need. There's no question about the timing. The source, I highly encourage this body to support contingency, because I think it's going to be private dollars that are already getting out the door right now, because rent has already been due and the private dollars are already doing as much as they can. But we're going to need it next month, and we're going to need it the month after that, and we're going to need it the month after that. And delaying this conversation about how we're going to work with the county does not help us. Waiting until we find out the county runs out of money doesn't help us, because we know they're going to run out of money. $1 million is not enough. We're going to need not just relief for this from the state for rental assistance. We're going to need relief for a whole host of economic impacts. The other part of that briefing was the recognition that this is at the scale of COVID or worse. And that required the federal government to step in with $300 million of stimulus just for the city of Minneapolis. I don't have a lot of faith in our federal government in this moment to step in with that kind of stimulus to backfill these dollars, but we are in crisis. This is not about our bond rating for the next year. This is about the future of our democracy. This is the future of our country. Our bond rating will be irrelevant if we are in an outright civil war. It has felt like we are on the brink of civil war as I'm out on the streets physically getting assaulted by my federal government. There's no more urgent crisis than what we're going through right now. The other piece to this is the discussion of the backlog at the county. I think Councilmember Chugtai spoke to this, but Director Hansen, can you confirm if they have a backlog? Because I heard also comments about the waiting list, and one of the reasons we actually extended our pre-eviction notice from 14 days to 30 days is because it still took about that much time to get money out the door, even if there wasn't a backlog. So can you help us understand that distinction?
Council President Payne, under request from Councilmember Chugtai, I have communicated with David Hewitt, who oversees this program at the county, and I will read. No waiting list. Eligible applications are processed within 14 days, quicker when needed to prevent loss of housing. So there is no waiting list.
Thank you for that. So there is an urgent need right now. People needed to pay rent yesterday. There's going to be a need next month and the month after that. And the housing crisis is going to be with us for decades. So we cannot raid our Affordable Housing Trust Fund and exacerbate the housing crisis. We can't just rely on private donors, because the need is going to go long before that period of time. The city needs to step up right now in this moment. I would prefer us to use contingency, because that's what contingency is for. Another use of contingency that wasn't discussed was there was an emergency because a convention that we were hosting ran out of money for the planner. That was raised to a level of urgency that got unanimous support from this body because of a convention was running out of money to pay their vendors. This is more of an emergency than that. We should be using contingency. I don't want to use cash balance because of the concerns about our bond rating, but that will have to be our next best choice. So I would prefer us to use contingency. Otherwise, we're getting into cash balance, and we'll have to deal with the aftermath of that. And seeing no one else in queue, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on item number 67.
And Mr. President, to be clear, this is on the original proposal that came forward with your agenda packet offered by Council Members Wansley, Osmond, Stevenson, Chavez, and Chowdhury.
Correct.
What is?
Councilmember Warren.
No.
Councilmember Schaefer.
No.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Chugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
No.
Councilmember Vito.
No.
Councilmember Palmisano.
No.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Vice President Osmond.
Aye.
President Payne.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes and 5 nays.
That motion required 10 votes, so therefore that fails. I will recognize Councilmember Wansley for a response. Councilmember Whiting.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to approve the following resolution in front of all of you. Happy to talk to any of the questions about this, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, President Payne. I would also like to bring a substitute motion that would still keep basically the original content of the contingency motion that just fell, but would essentially change the funding source to cash balance. The intent is still there. This is not the source that we ideally wanted to go for. We brought forward the one that was most appropriate. Unfortunately, supermajority of my colleagues did not agree with it. So this is the next best resort that we have to make sure that we aren't cutting programs and department level activities. So that said, I'm moving this forward, and also would like to note that Councilmember Chugtai is a co-author of this.
Mr. Clerk, we have 2 substitutes. Can you give some guidance on how we ought to approach this?
Mr. President, I know we've been talking about 3 resolutions and 3 different subjects, but parliamentary law says 1 motion can claim the body's time, 1 at a time. So Councilmember Whiting was in order and made a motion. That's the motion that is before the body. Then the body could take up the substitute that was offered by Councilmember Wansley and several co-authors. I will note that Councilmember Whiting made a motion, it wasn't seconded, and we recognized a new member who offered a different motion. So I think Whiting is in queue. There needs to be a second. If there's not a second, then that would die for lack of a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a proper motion in front of us by Councilmember Whiting, sourcing $1 million from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for rental assistance. Is there discussion on that item? Councilmember Osmond. Sorry, Vice President Osmond.
Thank you. I think the best option still would have been the contingent funding. I didn't hear any argument why we shouldn't do that other than, it's not going to work for immigrants or the county does different things. There's not a strong argument why we should not take the money. That's what the money is for. And let me just say that, Councilmember Whiting, I really appreciate your motion. It's trying to find a solution after it requires 10 votes, I guess, the last motion. That's why it's failed. Really like your bringing this forward, but I never, since I've been a chair of BIS committee, which everything comes through related to housing, Affordable Housing Trust was never go zone place. Like that was like, stay away from it. This is something that we always, protected. And former council member Allison was also really the guard of that funding, and including the administration and the mayor's office was always something no-go zone area. So I would like to support it, but as a chair of this committee, I cannot support it now. But I wish it would the cash balance would have come first, and if it would have failed, that would have been my third option to go, because we got to do everything we can to support the immigrants. At least we're trying to do very limited. We might not help everyone else. People will be displaced. People have been displaced. So just people that elected and people that manages their money, this is residents' money, is we're making that decision. And as a council body, our only power, and our power actually is about a budget. And that's how we're elected to oversight and make sure that we are making the right decisions. But I'm going to wait around and with your motion and not support it now. I wish it would have come later on after the cash balance, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councilmember Stevenson, you have a priority motion?
I'd like to call the question.
Councilmember Stevenson has called the question. Is there a second?
No, it's not a priority motion. Not a priority motion.
Oh.
Mr. President, calling the question is a standard motion. It's not a priority motion. A priority motion is like a point of order, an objection to the question, or a point of privilege. A priority motion would have to be in that vein. A call the question or the previous question is a standard motion that you get in order in the queue for.
Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I really appreciate Councilmember Whiting bringing this path as an option forward here today. I think you are the person I've talked to probably the most about this topic over the course of the last couple of days, and I saw a continuous desire from you to find a place of agreement, and I saw how deeply moved you were throughout those conversations by the tremendous need that we are seeing in our community, and that I deeply appreciate that. I see that need too, and agree that we need to take some action now. So, Councilmember Ellison did used to be the bulldog of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that's something that needs its next set of bulldogs. So let me attempt to do that just a little bit. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund was created in 2003 by Mayor R.T. Ryback. Its purpose was to have the general fund property taxes support the development of affordable housing units in our city, so that every taxpayer had a stake in people being able to continue to live in Minneapolis and afford to live here. And over the years, right, we see the investment in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund chip away. We see the way it is supported and paid for become less and less reliable, I suppose. Today, none of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is general fund supported. Today, we are investing less money in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund than we were prior to the pandemic. And it is that has real life impacts, right? If we know that recovery from this current crisis we are in is going to take years and years, it is important that we remain in the business of helping subsidize the development of affordable housing units to continue to come online 3, 5, 10 years from now, so that the people who are directly impacted right now can have a shot at calling Minneapolis home. We cannot pit two housing critical needs against each other. And, I will say this as a person who has voted in the past, just did last December, to take money out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But at that time, I made a commitment that this is not going to be a fund we are going to use as the thing that bails us out every time something goes wrong. And I want to honor that commitment, because this work is really important. We need to continue to do it. And it's the city's explicit position, our mayor's explicit position, that the best way to address homelessness is through building more affordable housing units, to build more housing in general. Why are we undermining that and pitting people who are facing evictions against people who can afford to live in Minneapolis in 3, 5, and 10 years? That's the reason I can't support this as a source. And I will not be supporting this motion today. But again, I want to thank the author for bringing this option forward and trying to get us to achieve some consensus.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, President Payne. Yeah, I want to thank Councilmember Whiting for bringing this forward. I have appreciated our conversations about it. You and I completely disagree on it, but your disagreement with me has been kind, and our conversations have been direct, and I have appreciated working with you in that. And I think that shows that when we're sitting here and we're having tough debates, which will befall us many more times, especially around budgeting this next year, that we can do that. I just want to state really clearly that $1 million equals a set of units that will be affordable for 30 years. That's always guaranteed when we have funding in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, because people regularly apply for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and there are oftentimes applicants, I think every single time, there are applicants that do not get awards, right? It is sought after funding, and we are no longer in the build more era that we were in the city of Minneapolis, that has kept our rent down, that has increased our tax base, and this is one of the few tools we have left to ensure that building continues, and more importantly, affordable building projects throughout our communities, because we know that there are not enough units for the number of people that have need for housing. And so I simply cannot vote for this because it is death by 1,000 paper cuts. We can't cannibalize the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It is overprescribed by the state. We need different resources from the state when it comes to rental assistance and homelessness. That's been really clear, and that's something that we will voice in our legislative agenda this year, and we need our community and our partners and philanthropy who's helping cover a lot of these costs to ensure that government shows up to meet these needs. And we're just going to need a system-wide shift on how we do housing. We can't just keep on going through crisis after crisis, and our housing system isn't resilient to it, because that costs lives. So I'm unable to support this. I commend the effort to bring this forward, though.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward. I would also prefer to vote on cash. I agree with Council Vice President. First, I also think $1 million directly from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is just too steep, and we should rather take smaller amounts from different departments. But if I'm still able, I'd like to call the question.
Councilmember Stevenson has called the question. Is there a second?
Second.
The clerk will call the roll.
On the motion to call the question, Councilmember Warren.
No.
Councilmember Schaefer.
No.
Councilmember Wansley is absent. Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
No.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
No.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
No.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Vice President Osmond is absent. Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Vice President Payne.
Nay.
There are 6 ayes and 6 nays.
That fails. Councilmember Whiting.
Wow.
Thank you, President Payne. And I would like to note to my colleagues, I do appreciate the conversations that we've had for the past weeks on this motion. I think all of us, again, agree that this is an emergent need, that this is an immediate need, and I appreciate the conversations as such. As my council member colleagues, both to the side of me, right, we've had long discussions on these. I don't think any of us want to put forward a motion that takes any dollar out of any of our funds here in the city of Minneapolis, because we know that takes from individuals that need it, regardless of where these funds are pulled from. Again, I think, to reiterate, I fully believe that this is the best middle portion and movement that we can actually move this forward on. My worry is that, and I'm not sure the political realities of this, of the general fund piece, but I do expect that this may come back to us in a couple weeks. And if that is the case, that fully delays this immediate need to help individuals that need now. Like all of you up here, I am getting the same conversations of individuals in my ward across the city that need this help now and today. I think any increase in delay continues to put people out of their homes, and that is what the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is there to do, is to keep people in their homes. That is the direct purpose of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I think we all know that it's so much more expensive to keep people housed if they are out of their homes. 2 weeks, I think, is too long of a time to then delay this motion or this, if it comes back to us, to delay it any further. And if we were able to get this through, I think I have high confidence that it wouldn't come back to us. And so, again, kind of urge you all to consider this, again, not necessarily for the merits on the page of the funding source, but of the political realities that we do sit in and engage in. Thank you.
Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Council President. My question is for Councilmember Whiting. And if I'm reading this correctly, it says that the $1 million one-time rental assistance provided funds to Hennepin County are unspent within a month and a day at the end of Operation Metro Surge. All remaining funds will be returned back to CPED. It'll go back, so they'll get the money back. We're just sitting it somewhere else for a minute, and then, or however, and if it's used, it's used. It kind of, if you need it, you need it. If you don't, you don't. Is that what we're doing here?
Correct.
Okay, because I don't want to take any money from no affordable housing. That's the part that I'm struggling with, okay? For affordable housing development, ensuring that individuals and families have what they need. I have been a recipient of Section 8. I have lived in my car. I have lived at Mary Jo's shelter. I know what homelessness looks like, feels like, and I've housed homeless in Hennepin County. So if we're not taking away from the stability and we're lending to borrow. I mean, the whole thing is to get these funds and all of the red tape and paperwork. I really just want my colleagues to understand I am not anti-supporting anyone. That is what I do, is the biggest advocacy ever for anyone and families. That's what I do. I am a mother of 6 children and 6 grandchildren. I am the champion of help someone to help somebody, okay? But the red tape that you go through just to ask for a crumb of some bread here in, I mean, seriously, it is a lot. And the eligibility is slim pickings that make you eligible to even receive it. If you've never been in that food stamp line or had to stand at window 5 in Century Plaza, you don't get it. And I challenge you to really put on your thinking caps. I will support this, Jameson, for this one time. I want us to vote and be done with this, because I got to pee. There's the red button to say stop. Jeez.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like, 1, we don't know when the surge is going to end. 2, how do you even determine if the surge has ended or not? It's not going to be through press conference. Like, we're going to have to actually see it. And I mean it, because Tom Homan's saying we're going to withdraw down 700. Where's the 700? How do we know? Right? How do we know that they're not adding more? So I'm also willing to say that, like, the need is so high, which we have seen through millions of dollars of mutual aid funding, that, like, we're probably not going to see the $1 million back or a significant amount back. So I don't want us to just put our hat on this. Like, the need is incredible. The last thing I'll say is, if this is to pass, or if it's vetoed, which I'm hearing an allusion to, and that veto is then sustained, I will 100% bring a general fund allocation in the budget cycle to refill the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So we can either do that now, or we can do it later, because I will bring it back.
Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Council President Payne. I want to thank Councilor Whiting for bringing this forward. I cannot support it. I think this will be detrimental to our affordable housing stock across the city, especially when we are living in an emergency. If we didn't want to take from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we should have taken from the contingency fund. So the other option that many members before we took that vote said was, we're going for this cash fund. We had optioned, and now we're going to do something different, right? So I also want to point out the way the resolution is written. While I appreciate that intent could have an impact on who gets these services, it talks about that funds to Hennepin County that are unspent within 1 month and a day of the end of Operation Metro Surge, all remaining funds shall be returned to CPED. even if Operation Metro Surge were to end, ICE is still going to be in our city and in our state, and they're still going to be kidnapping our neighbors. They have been doing so before Operation Metro Surge. There has been an issue impacting our neighbors way before this operation happened. Many of our families and loved ones are still going to be torn apart. So I feel like while I appreciate the intention of this resource, the way it has been written will also have an unintentional consequence of who can access the resources, so I can't support it. But I appreciate the thought of trying to bring people together.
Seeing no one else left in queue, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the resolution brought forward by Councilmember Whiting to the source from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for rental assistance.
Councilmember Warren.
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Wansley.
Nay.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Nay.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Nay.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Nay.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
No.
Vice President Osman.
No.
President Payne.
Nay.
There are 6 ayes and 7 nays.
That motion fails. And now I will recognize Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, President Payne. I will move the motion forward using the cash balance as a funding source to go to Hennepin County in the amount of $1 million. And you have the technical amendments in front of you to the revised motion, and I will ask for a second.
Second.
Councilmember Wansley has moved the resolution. It's been properly seconded. I'll recognize Councilmember Chugtai.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just feel so incredibly disappointed that this is the last option, right? This is we're now pulling money out of our fund balance. Our financial position is in an incredibly tough place, and a part of that is a $20 million overspend by the Minneapolis Police Department in last year's budget, or over the course of 2025, which has significantly diminished our cushion. We have significant overtime resources that have been spent so far this year. We're just in February. And I really dislike that this is where we are pulling from. This was... I very strongly believe and continue to that the most appropriate source was contingency. That was not the will of the body, and I'm going to support this because of how large the need is and how few resources exist in the face of it, and that just matters the most right now. But this can't be how we keep moving forward. We're going to have a lot of tough choices to make over the course of this year, and then as we look towards our budget for next year, and we don't have cushions. We don't have magic money hidden places anymore. And this is a reflection of how significant the need is, because I know that most of the authors here did not prefer this source in the first place. The preference was the most appropriate source given all of the conditions before us. But here we are. I hope sincerely that this can be a motion that this body can approve, so that we can do our small little part in keeping people in their homes and in the neighborhoods that they love, in their communities. Thank you.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thanks, President Payne. I just wanted to make a quick remark that members, we do have a procedural ability to reconsider our vote on the contingency motion, right? We can do that if the body so chooses. I mean, it would need the help of the clerks, but there would have to be a will, and if there is a change of heart, like, it's not over for us to reconsider contingency, which I do agree is the most appropriate place where this should come from.
Mr. Clerk, do you want to remind the body how reconsideration works?
Mr. President, the motion to reconsider requires someone who voted in the prevailing side to make that motion. Assuming it passes, then that matter returns before the body and can be taken up again for a second vote. So the first thing is to make sure that we have someone who voted in the majority or on the prevailing side of the original question. And I'll say that the original question I have was 8-5. It failed because it was a vote which, to consider approving it, required 10. As the body knows, the use of contingency under city charter requires 10 votes. So it was 2 votes shy from passing the charter threshold. So any of the 8 council members who voted with the majority could make a motion to bring, I'm sorry, anybody from the 5, because it failed, and that's the prevailing side, would be able to bring forward a motion to reconsider that procedure, and then it would be back in front of us.
Councilmember Chowdhury? Okay. Councilmember Chugtai?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Clerk, can you, or through the chair, I'm hoping if the clerk can list off the 5 members that were on the prevailing side just one more time.
Through the President, those who voted nay, which is the prevailing side, were council members Warren, Schaefer, Rainville, Vita, and Palmisano.
Mr. Chair, I mean, I would urge one of these members who voted, who were on the prevailing side, to please make a motion to reconsider. I see that I'm not successful.
I guess I'll just add myself to queue just really quickly, just to thank Councilmember Whiting for, you have been very clear about your spirit of problem solving, and you brought a very problem solving approach to this. However, although your motion didn't prevail, I really appreciated the effort that you put into that. And I will be supporting our motion that's in front of us right now. And seeing no one else left in queue, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the Wansley motion.
For clarity, Mr. President, I'll point out this version has revised, highlighted in yellow at the top, and has Councilmember Chugtai also added as a co-author at the end. Councilmember Warren?
No.
Councilmember Schaefer?
No.
Councilmember Wansley?
Aye.
Councilmember Chugtai?
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting?
No.
Councilmember Chowdhury?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevenson?
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville?
Aye.
Councilmember Vita?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano?
No.
Councilmember Chavez?
Aye.
Vice President Osmond?
Aye.
President Payne?
Aye.
There are 9 ayes and 4 nays.
That motion passes, and that completes all items on the entire SuperCal report. The next order of business is notice of ordinance introductions. We have 3 notices today, one of which was added to our agenda at the top of the meeting. First, council members Chavez, Chowdhury, Wansley, Payne, and Stevenson give notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting the subject matter of an ordinance to amend the Health and Sanitation Code to decriminalize the possession of drug paraphernalia. Second, Council Vice President Osmond gives notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting the subject matter of an ordinance amending the Licenses and Business Regulations Code to amend the regulation of alcohol on licensed parking lot premises. And third, Councilmember Chugtai gives notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending Title 12, Chapter 244 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances related to Housing Maintenance Code, Section 244.285, to add regulations regarding owner entry into a rented dwelling unit. Those notices are hereby given and no further action is required at this time. The next order of business is the introduction and referral calendar. We have 2 introductions today. First, pursuant to notice, council members Wansley, Osmond, Chavez, and Stevenson move to introduce the subject matter of an ordinance to amend the housing code, give first reading, and refer to the Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee for its consideration a proposal to authorize eviction moratoria during states of emergency. Second, council members Wansley, Osmond, Stevenson, Chavez, and Chowdhury move to introduce an ordinance amending the housing code, giving first reading, refer to the committee of the whole, and set a public hearing to be held at that committee's meeting on February 17th, a proposal to temporarily extend the length of required pre-eviction notices. I'll note that this introduction seeks to bypass the first step for enacting an ordinance, which is notice, so it will require unanimous consent to accomplish what is being proposed for this ordinance. May I have a motion to approve these introductions?
So moved. Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I'll recognize Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, President Payne. Colleagues, I'm asking for your support on an ordinance called Pause Eviction Save Lives, which is a temporary policy change that will extend the timeline for evictions to protect renters from the impacts of the ICE occupation. Currently, if a landlord plans to file an eviction due to missed rent, they must give the renter 30 days notice prior to filing the eviction. Pause Eviction Save Lives would temporarily increase the required notice from 30 days to 60 days. This gives family an extra month to acquire the funds needed to cover any missed rent and avoid having an eviction be filed. The 60-day requirement would be in effect until July 31st. Rental assistance funding takes time, as we just had a very robust conversation around that. And additionally, new financial resources could be available to families once the state legislative session begins on February 17th. And Pause Eviction Save Lives give families more time to apply for and receive rental assistance funding, and thus preventing evictions and protecting families. My co-authors are asking for your support to expedite the consideration of the ordinance, and I'm going to outline why. The expedited timeline is the difference between families being protected on March 1st or not. This will literally make the difference for thousands of families entering into the eviction process versus thousands of families having to or having a protection in place when next month's rent is due. And I'm not being dramatic when I say this, but this could absolutely save lives. And that's a huge responsibility and opportunity that this council has. And I hope there would be not a member of this body who is okay with letting families come up on March 1st, rent being due, and not having a protection in place. And it's with that serious responsibility to protect residents in our hands that I ask for unanimous support from council on today's action to waive notice of intent to introduce, give a first reading of the ordinance, refer to the committee of the whole, and set a public hearing for the committee of the whole on February 17th. From there, we would hold a public hearing at the committee of the whole on February 17th, followed by a council vote on the ordinance on February 19th. And during the week of February 9th, we have asked the CAO or City Attorney's Office to be available for briefings on the ordinance to help ensure that you all have all the information that you need prior to council's final consideration and vote of the ordinance on February 19th. If there was ever a time or moment to expedite a process, this is it. And we have the opportunity to deliver protections for our community, and hope this is another opportunity in which we can work together to pause evictions and save lives. So with that, I will motion the item for approval.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded, and seeing no one else left in queue, I will ask the clerk to call the roll, reminding everyone that we do need unanimous consent. And Mr. Clerk, did you want to give any guidance?
Not guidance, but I actually wanted to offer some compliments and maybe some explanations both for returning council members and new council members and the public who watch. There are some subtle language differences that are clues to council members when we get to the introduction and referral calendar. If you'll notice on number 1, the eviction moratorium ordinance uses the phrase to introduce the subject matter of an ordinance. On number 2, it says to introduce an ordinance. That's the clerk's subtle way of telling you. On number 1, we don't have a draft ordinance. It has not been prepared. We're giving a reading to an ordinance that no one has seen. Councilmember Wansley and her associates on the second one have done their due diligence, and there is actually a full ordinance. It's in limbs. It's posted for public access, which is why the usual process should be number 2. There is an ordinance that you can see, that the public can see. We are actually giving it its first reading today. This is the first step in the legislative process where council could vote to kill an ordinance. Right? This is the first formal vote on an ordinance. And in 95% of the cases, we don't have a draft ordinance. So this is the process whereby the council members have done their homework. They've prepared an ordinance. They've worked with the attorneys. They've brought it forward. It was on the limbs file and available for all council members and the public to see before we take the vote today. So I wanted to say thank you for all that work, and to say that's the subtle difference if you're reading those items on the agenda. When it says subject matter, we don't have anything. When it says ordinance, we actually have the draft ordinance.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to call the roll, Mr.
Yep, thank you for that clarification, and I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Warren.
No.
Councilmember Schaefer.
No.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
No.
Councilmember Vitaw.
No.
Councilmember Palmisano.
No.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Vice President Osmond.
Aye.
President Payne.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes and 5 nays.
That motion fails as
Mr.
it required
President.
unanimous consent.
Mr. President, the first item passes. It only needed a simple majority.
Thank
so
you.
item 1 on the introduction referral calendar will move forward as stated. On item number 2, it failed to get unanimous consent. So I'm assuming that Councilmember Wansley would give notice today and move forward. And
Yes.
that doesn't require a vote, because now it just became a notice of introduction.
That's right. Councilmember Wansley?
Yep, that's a Sorry. Yes, thank you, Clerk Carl. We had the opportunity to do something very simple and show unity to expedite a legislative process when the work has been already done, to give you an ordinance and to bring your constituents along for a public hearing that would have took place on February 17th. And we could have made sure that preventative protections against evictions could have been in place ahead of the March 1st deadline for rent. Supermajority of our colleagues did not want to move forward, but luckily we still have our legislative process to move forward with this. So I'm giving official notice that will still allow us to move forward, and would then require a simple majority vote at the end of it to adopt it. And at least, and unfortunately at least, after March 1st, this would, if adopted by this body, would give thousands of families that additional 60 days temporarily to seek out rental assistance and stay housed. But it's really sad that we're almost going into the 3rd month of this operation, and the supermajority of this body could not get behind making sure that residents had a pre-eviction protection in place. That said, I look forward to gaining the support of a majority of my colleagues to put this in place in the coming weeks and months as we further consider it.
That notice is hereby given, and no further action is required at this time. And Mr. Clerk, I have several folks in queue, but we actually don't have an item on the table anymore, do we?
Announcements?
All right. The next order of business is resolutions. We have one resolution today, and that is an honorary resolution to designate the month of February 2026 as Black History Month in the city of Minneapolis. We were able to participate in a breakfast event in our historic rotunda this morning. That was the city's official launch of this month's long celebration of Black History Month. I want to express the council's thanks to the city's Black Employee Network, MBEN, and the planning committee who organized today's breakfast celebration. Do council members have any comments to add? Council Member Vitaw.
Thank you, Chair Payne. This morning we had a wonderful breakfast, and we had lots of folks attend. It was actually a super fun way to start the day in honor of Black History Month. I just wanted to acknowledge a woman who was there this morning, and somehow we missed her. Her name is Destiny Prosper. She's been a hero in North Minneapolis. She has actually fundraised $40,000 for Jenny Lynn School by herself. You may catch her on the news every now and then talking about the amazing work she's done in North Minneapolis. We have so many heroes like Destiny in our our community, but I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged her because she's just taken this thing by storm with helping with food, rent assistance. She was actually one of the first persons that I met that was doing home delivery. So thank you, Destiny. Thank you to everyone. But in particular, in this Black History Month, I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the phenomenal work she's doing on behalf of families in North Minneapolis. And thanks to everyone else who attended this morning. Fun celebration, good way to start the day and to get a good start on Black History Month. I enjoyed all the fun we had, the good breakfast. Thank you to Latunji for catering the breakfast this morning. That was a great addition to the event. It's always good when you gather Black people, you got to have food. So that was a good addition. Thank you so much to the clerk's office for making sure, and also to the building commission and security and everyone for making sure we were safe, and we had a good fun time this morning for our annual Black History Month breakfast.
Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Council President. I want to just say thank you to everyone. This was beautiful. All of the individuals that we recognized and all of the attendees in support of the work and the resilience of Black folks here in America to have a moment during this time of uncertainty throughout the city to recognize the instrument of leadership, the instrument of creativity, the instrument of resilience that we have embodied for hundreds of years here in America. I'm ultimately grateful for the opportunity and that the city took time to uplift this time and this moment. The work is not done. The work continues, and I just want to honor and celebrate everyone that we recognize today, and all bodies that came and attended and supported and uplifted those moments. And yeah, that's it. That's what I got. So thank you for that opportunity. It was wonderful.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you so much, President Payne. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the extreme hardship that our Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant businesses particularly are facing. They were already facing many issues and were in recovery prior to the ICE occupation and surge, but we're seeing from our local businesses that they are in some cases seeing an 80% decrease in the regular customer base that they have. So I'm just encouraging everyone to go to a Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant-owned business, double your orders, tip extra if you can. If you can share that out on your social media and channels, that's something that I continue to hear as a need. Promotion is really helpful, and our city has been showing up as there's been different direct actions that fill our streets, and then we end up seeing community members go to our local businesses. So just encouraging everyone that's watching to spread the word, and all of us to continue to lean in that way.
Councilmember Chavez. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say that it is truly an honor as a new council member to sit amongst a body of council representatives from all across the diaspora. That truly feels empowering. It's beautiful, and I wanted to acknowledge that at this very same time. And don't ever disrespect me by equating me or making me comparing me to MAGA in any way, because I'm blackety black, black, okay? Just so you understand. Foundationally to this. Ain't nowhere they can send me to. I've been here. There never was a time when I was not, and I will always be here. The end.
Seeing no one else left in queue, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Warren.
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Wansley is absent. Councilmember Shabtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Vital.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Vice President Osman is absent. President Payne.
Aye.
There are 11 ayes.
That carries, and that resolution is adopted. And for myself and for the entire City Council, I want to uplift our Black residents, neighbors, colleagues, and family members. We set aside this month each year to commemorate Black History Month, but it is important that we recognize, honor, and celebrate the lives of Black people all year long. And I want to especially offer my sincere thanks and appreciation to the Minneapolis Black Employee Network and Ganani Omar from the Ward 2 office, who did a heavy lift to put on today's event, and day after day, both inside the city enterprise as well as out in the community. So thank you for that. Next, we have a request for a closed session today with our city attorney, but before I recognize the attorney for that purpose, I will ask if there are any announcements from council members.
I'm on cue.
Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Council President Payne. I just wanted to confer with the clerks that all the authors for the temporary pre-eviction notice extension NOI are reflected on the notice of intent.
I'm so sorry, Councilmember. Can you repeat that?
Since the notice of intent, I want to make sure that the authors that were submitted for the ordinance are reflected on there.
Happy to add your name.
Great, thank you. It's not just me either. Also, really wanted to talk about the item and its importance, so I hope that when this ordinance comes before the council, that neighbors show up to City Hall, talk to your council members about the importance of this emergency temporary pre-eviction notice ordinance. The reality is many of our neighbors are going to face displacement. $1 million that we just allocated in the City Council is not going to be enough to prevent the displacement of our neighbors. The GoFundMes, the rental assistance that our neighbors in Minneapolis, in the state of Minnesota, across the country are fundraising is not going to be enough to prevent the displacement of our neighbors. I was hoping that we would have taken this action to go the route of a more expedited route to prevent the displacement of our neighbors. I'm disappointed that we didn't do that today, but it doesn't mean we get to stop. Now neighbors get to advocate and ask their council members, their elected officials, to take action, and I can't wait for this vote to happen. I'm disappointed it wasn't able to happen in an expedited way, but there is going to be an opportunity for folks to testify, to come to the chambers, and ask for change. So thank you.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make an apology to my colleagues. I did not mean to make my statement during the resolution. I had mistaken that for announcements, so I just apologize that I made that statement during the resolution portion, because that's exclusively for Black History Month.
Councilmember Wanzi, would you like your vote reflected for the Black History Month resolution?
Yes, as a affirmative.
All right, we got that. Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge that this morning at as early as 6 o'clock, just less than a day after Tom Homan announced that there would be an end to roving patrols and that there would be a reduction in the number of agents that were going to each or carrying out these quote unquote targeted operations, which we clearly see over the course of the last 2 days that's not been the case. But and this morning so early, dozens of my neighbors were woken up because ICE agents broke down an apartment building's door, and 24 agents went in and arrested a woman that was our neighbor. And it's just we're continuing to experience tragedy after tragedy right now, and I just want to hold some space for my constituents, for all of your constituents. Honestly, we're all living through this together, and yeah, thank you.
See no one else left in queue. With that, we've completed all of the items on our agenda. I'll recognize the city attorney to provide the legal basis for the requested closed session as noted on our agenda.
Thank you, President Payne. As you just noted, the next item on the agenda is a discussion of the state of Minnesota et al. Versus Nome et al. Your lawyers wish to provide a briefing to the council on this litigation matter. Accordingly, under the Minnesota Open Meeting Law, Minnesota Statutes, Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, the council may, upon a proper motion, close the meeting for the purposes of attorney-client communication as permitted by the attorney-client privilege. In considering the motion, the council should weigh the right of the public to know what its government is doing against the need of the city to preserve the confidentiality of its discussion with its attorneys.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. I move to close our public meeting as authorized under the Open Meeting Law, specifically Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, for the purpose of receiving a briefing on the litigation matter of State of Minnesota et al. V. Nome et al. May I have a second to that motion?
Second.
The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Warren.
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Whiting.
Aye.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Vice President Osmond is gone. President Payne.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That carries. For the viewing public, I'll note that the broadcast of this meeting will continue and the council will reconvene in public after we've concluded the closed session.